Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I pray y'all are having a blessed and beautiful day. And this channel is to help encourage you through your walk with Christ throughout life, because life can get to life in, okay? And so I'm just here to really just help you and to take you through the revelation that God has been giving me with his word and throughout life, and just sharing it with you to hopefully help you through your life. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so today we're going to be talking about how when we are out of alignment with God, when we put ourselves in misalignment with him, it can lead us to sin. It can lead us to sinning against God. And an example of this that I read in the Bible is David and Bathsheba. And I don't know if y'all know about that story, but y'all need to know because it is juicy and it just has so many lessons. David was a man, like he's known as being a man after God's own heart, but he still fell short. Okay, so in this story, in the springtime, the kings are going out for battle, but David decides to stay behind. And this is kind of unusual because he's the leader. So for him to stay behind is, he's putting his men in, he's making his men vulnerable. And so he decides to stay behind and let his men go and fight the battle. And they do it and they get the victory, thank God. But during that time when David was staying behind, he woke up one morning and he saw a beautiful girl named Bathsheba, and he was so awestruck by her beauty that he went to go scent for her, and also he was lusting after her so bad that he went to go scent for her. And when they got her, David slept with her. Of course, he slept with her. During this whole time, Bathsheba is married to Uriah. And Uriah is one of the men in David's army. Like he's one of um, David's men that goes and fight. And so he's battling. He's doing what he's supposed to do. All this while, his wife is sleeping with King David. Like it's just it's messed up. And then Bathsheba, she finds out that she's pregnant. David, he freaks out and he wants to cover it up by trying to get Uriah, trying to pull him out of battle to get him to go back to Bathsheba and sleep with her so it can look like, he got her pregnant. Her husband got her pregnant. But Uriah, he was a man of integrity and he was so devoted to the other men in battle, because when back like in the Bible, when the men were in battle, they purged themselves of having sex with their women and also drinking. Like they didn't drink. They were trying to get rid of the distractions and sharpen their mind for battle. So Uriah, he declined the time he declined the offer that David gave him to go back home. And David, he got upset. He still did not know what to do. So he sent and arranged for Uriah to get killed in battle by putting him in the front lines and getting his men to back off so that they can, you know, attack him. And his plan worked. Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, also David's soldier, got killed, got killed in battle. And it's crazy because David is a man after God's own, is known for being a man after God's own heart. But you see where lust can drive you, where our own desires, sinful desires, and sin can drive you. For David to really plan out the death of Uriah, a man that was just doing what he was supposed to do, didn't even know this whole time his wife was cheating on him and got pregnant. Like it's just so crazy to me how, and it's just so sad to me because that's why God hates sin. He hates sin because of what it does, the hurt it puts on others, the the separation it draws, the fact that it can lead to death. with David planning for Uriah because of what it does, the hurt it puts on others, the the separation it draws, the fact that it can lead to death, with David planning for Uriah to get killed. Like, he, God hates sin because he knows what sin can make you do. After, Uriah, he died in battle, Bathsheba got the news and she was mourning. And after the mourning, David ends up marrying Bathsheba, which is still so messed up. And then they sleep together, have a baby, but it's in the Bible, it says that God was displeased with David. And, with sin, it comes with consequences. It comes with consequences. And so they had a baby, and the baby died. The baby died. There was, it was judgment on David's sin, on David's behalf, on what he did, getting Bathsheba's husband killed when he didn't do anything wrong. And because of so much out of lusting after somebody else's wife. Let's just read, because I want us to read it to get some more context, because I gave y'all a little summary. So let's just read it a little bit, and then we're gonna just go into some lessons and just, and I'm just gonna be sharing a revelation of what God gave me. All right, so let's read 1 Samuel 11. David and Bathsheba. In the spring of the year, when the kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. As he looked out over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. She had just completed the purification rites after having her menstrual period. Then she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered that she was pregnant, she sent the message to David saying, "I'm pregnant." Then David sent word to Joab, Send me Uriah the Hittite. So Joab sent him to David. When Uriah arrived, David asked him how Joab and the army were getting along and how the war was progressing. Then he told Uriah, "Go home and relax." David even sent a gift to Uriah after he had left the palace, but Uriah didn't go home. He slept that night at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. When David heard that Uriah had not gone home, he summoned him and asked, "What's the matter? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long?" Uriah replied, "The ark and the armies of Israel and Judah are living in tents, and Joab and my master's men are camping in the open fields. How could I go home to wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear that I would never do such a thing." "Well, stay here today," David told him, "and tomorrow you may return to the army." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited him to dinner and got him drunk. But even then, he couldn't get Uriah to go home to his wife. Again, he slept at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. David arranges for Uriah's death. So the next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, "Station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is fiercest, then pull back so that he will be killed." So Joab assigned Uriah to a spot close to the city wall where he knew the enemy's strongest men were fighting. And when the enemy soldiers came out of the city to fight, Uriah the Hittite was killed with several of other Israelite soldiers. Then Joab sent a battle report to David. He told his messenger, "Report all the news of the battle to the king." But he might get angry and ask, "Why did the troops go so close to the city? Didn't they know where there could be shooting from the walls? Wasn't Abimelech, son of Gideon, killed at Thebes by a woman who threw a millstone down on him from the wall? Why would you get so close to the wall?" Then tell him, "Uriah the Hittite was killed too." So the messenger sent to Jerusalem and gave a complete report to David. The enemy came out against us in the open fields, he said, and as we chased them back to the city gate, the archers on the wall choose this one today and that one tomorrow. Fight harder next time and conquer the city. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When the period of mourning was over, David sent for her and brought her to the palace, and she became one of his wives. Then she gave birth to a son, but the Lord was displeased with what David had done. Woo, baby! And a takeaway that I took away from this is that it's so important to stay in alignment with God, to try to stay in alignment with God and what He's called you to do, to be faithful with what He's called you to do. Because just like David, he was out of alignment and he allowed for sin to creep in, and it led to judgment. It led to God having to unleash his wrath on him. Also led to an innocent man being killed, Uriah. And so David's role as king was to lead his people, was to go out to battle with his men. But he neglected that responsibility, and it created space for temptation. Lesson from this is that the enemy strikes in time of passivity. Satan often attacks when we are spiritually off guard. And so Satan, he prowls around like a lion, seeking who he may devour. So Satan is watching when you are in a place of vulnerability, and he will try to attack. At a place of weakness, and he will try to attack. So he saw that David had neglected his duty, and that's where the enemy attacked David by and David let his lustful desires, his sinful desires win. And that's what happens when we're out of alignment with God. When you're out of alignment with God, you have to sustain yourself in whatever you're doing, because God is not going to, when you're out of the will with God, let me say that. When you're out of the will with God, God's hand is off of the situation. It's off of whatever situation that you're in. And so when David stepped out of alignment of God's will, his hands were off of him. And so that allows the enemy to creep in, to tempt you, to attack what you're vulnerable in, and what you're weak in, and what areas that you're weak in. Because the enemy knows, he studies us from a young age. He studies us, and he knows what kind of temptations to throw at us. He knows what kind of attacks to throw at us to get us to take the bite. And also, this the enemy's attacks can come very subtle. The drift away from God comes very subtly, because David, he woke up, he didn't think he was going to sin that day. But once you're out of alignment, once he failed to do what he was supposed to do as king, failed to do one of his duties, it created vulnerability that allowed temptation to progress. So it subtly happened. He woke up. He was walking around his palace, noticed a very beautiful woman. And just like that, it led to him sending for her to sleep with her, to sleep with another man's wife. And David knew who she was, because he asked his palace people, his servants, to let him know who this lady was. And they told him, if you notice in the passage that I just read. And he still continued to sleep, to go that far, to go even further. And then after he slept with her, it went further to him planning Uriah's death, Bathsheba's husband. And so you see how sin can build up, can continue to build up into something big. Sin can start off so subtle, so small. Oh, and this is a lesson. Like, say, for instance, you go and steal something at the store, something small. You don't think nothing of it. You're like, okay, it's little. But and then, because you let that sin creep in and you let that desire win, you now want to steal something bigger. You now want to steal more money, want to take things further. And so that's what we see here with King David. He not only slept with another man's wife, but he then, which was sin, then led him to even bigger sin, getting somebody's man killed. And so that is a lesson for us, that if we do not deal aggressively with with sin, and that can be even a thought of doing something wrong, a thought of lusting over somebody who's not yours. If we don't deal with that, that is going to lead you to even more. That's why God is like, check your thoughts, because you thinking about sleeping with somebody's man, you thinking about cheating on your spouse, and you continue to meditate on it, that is going to lead you to do the very thing that you're thinking about. I'm telling you, because I've seen it in my own life. And so that's why God is just like, we have to deal aggressively with our sin. We we have to take every thought captive. That in the word it says we have to take every thought captive. Every thought that is not of God. We got to take it captive. We got to present it to the Lord. Because if we just let it stay, if we just continue to feed into it, it's going to continue to lead us into more and more sin. What is the saying? Sin. Oh, I remember this like picture of a man and it was like a picture of a lion. The lion was labeled as sin. He was feeding the lion. The lion was growing bigger, bigger, and bigger as he was feeding the lion, which represented sin. And that sin got so big, that lion got so big that it devoured that man. That's what sin does to us today. When we continue to feed the lies of the enemy, when we continue to feed into the temptations, it will eventually destroy us. And so that is it for today's video. I'm telling y'all, if y'all don't know the story of David and Bathsheba, go and read it on your own. First, no, 2 Samuel 11. Read it and you'll see consequences of being out of alignment with God. And also, you're going to see how God is so gracious and so kind that later on he still loves David, and he still, after the punishment had happened, he still loved David, and David repented to God, and God welcomed him in, forgave him of his sin. And it shows just how forgiving God is. And so I love you guys so much. I pray y'all have a blessed and beautiful day, and I hope to see y'all on the next video. Bye.